shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. 9, gonna shine, life is good. I'm doing fine. 10, gonna do it right and do it again, yeah. I look into the sky with all its beautiful color, but there's more than just for me, so gonna share it with another. I got to show, to give, let out. I want to sing and shout. Take a look and see a beautiful morning.
Been in here and people are roaring with laughter, so.
It's a dirty show, though.
Well, it's clean dirt.
You have here the best of the best.
Yes.
So we have many celebrities here. The Harley Madison come over here, and the Usher come over here many often, and the Paris Hilton come here.
Boy, I'm dating myself, but it's okay. Nobody else will. Oh.
That's so Vegas.
It's pretty amazing when you consider that 7 years ago, we didn't have the treatments we have now. We cure 80% of children with cancer. If you think about that, I mean, go back 50 years, we were curing 20 to 30%. This is the miracle story of modern medicine. We understand what makes this cancer tick. And of course, without donors from around the world, this just couldn't happen. And there's one thing we're focused on here at St. Jude, and that's beating this thing.
Welcome to That's So Vegas. I'm your host, Christine McKellar, and I'm just so proud to be here in my new studio in the fabulous and famous Las Vegas Arts District, downtown Las Vegas. I have a very special guest here today, somebody that I just admire the heck out of, and you have a very special job in life. I'd like to introduce Patti Novak. And I'm kind of chuckling because in my own introduction that we just watched, I make this little crack to one of the Fresh 52 vendors, Dawn, and I said, oh, I'm dating myself. And then honestly, it was spontaneous. I went, that's okay, nobody else will. So how do you deal with a person like me who subconsciously just spouts off with something like that? Because you are a matchmaker and you have a whole service you provide.
As a professional matchmaker and a dating coach, I would probably coach that comment and say to you that that's not true. There is somebody out there for everybody. It's a whether or not you're in the right place, mind, body, soul. So I think that, you know, if you've decided to stay alone, that's fine.
Right.
That's the journey in itself then.
Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. I like that. It is the journey.
It is the journey.
I like too that you just said dating coach. So
most everybody needs a little of it.
A little coaching along the way.
A little bit.
Well, dating has changed so much probably since we were teenagers, correct?
You know what though? The thing that no one ever taught us, our schools, our religion, our parents, our peer group, is how to casually date. We met, we have chemistry, and then all of a sudden we're steady, married. And then, you know, in Las Vegas, sometimes better than 50% divorced.
Of course.
Therefore, what I try to teach people is how to casually date. And there's only really one rule in casual dating. You could be, you know, dating Tom and Paul, and as long as you don't sleep with them, you can casually date them. So that you make good choices the next time.
Right.
Or the first time.
I guess sleeping with somebody on the first date isn't such a good idea. Not that I've ever practiced that, but...
someone asked me once, you know, when's the right time? I would never answer that. You know, it's different for everybody, but I will say that if the vagina was supposed to be easy to get to, it'd be on our shoulder blades. And it's not there. So girls, it's up to us.
So glad. Yeah, that could have been awkward, but no, I like that. I mean, I have advised other girlfriends, just don't sleep with them on the first date. It isn't so much as like you're trying to play hard to get or anything. It's just common sense, wouldn't you say?
It's common sense. Well, you know, there's been a lot of obituaries written about common sense.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. If you, anybody can Google that.
Okay.
You know, the obituary of common sense.
Okay, good. But
so you bring that back to life when we start dating, for sure.
And is there so when you have a website and you counsel and you coach and you do have an illustrious history, because when I was researching a little bit on your background, you actually had your first real matchmaking at 10 years old?
Yeah, 10 or 12 years old, I started to make matches and then intervene and problem solve with them as a young person. And I actually introduced my brother to his wife of 34 years now. And
older brother?
One, and barely. We're what they call Irish twins. So we're not quite a full year apart. And so we were, you know, close in friendships and so on and so forth. But I had said to him, you know, I really need you to take Jeannie out. I really want. And he said, no, no, no. I said, Jimmy, just take her out. Well, Jimmy and Jeannie have been together now, 34 years married.
That's
3 adult
amazing.
Children, you know.
So would you say that you, in that regard, do you have a very highly successful track record?
I think I do, actually. I think that I'm careful on who I take on.
Okay.
And not just not careful per se that they're quality, because usually the people that call on me are quality, but that I have what they're looking for, and what they're looking for is what they really deserve.
So do they have to fill out a questionnaire, a whole
No,
entire
well, they
thing,
do it. We do two-step screening process. First is on the phone to see if I think it's a good alternative, and if I did think it was a good alternative, I would bring someone in for a 90 to 120-minute interview, where it's pretty comfortable. They decide if they want the help, and I have to decide whether or not it's a good fit as well.
That could take a lot of work, I would think, a lot of research.
It's a lot of energy.
Yeah, and a lot of energy, which... So that brings to mind something I was thinking about when I knew I was going to have you, and I'm so glad you're on the show. Really,
thank you.
Glad
Thanks
you could
for
come
having
in.
me.
I know your schedule's just been off the top. You've been off the chart. But even as you were younger, did you feel it was more intuition or common sense that helps you bring the right people together or give the people the right advice to casual date?
I think it's even more natural than those two descriptives. I think it just is something that was my calling. It came natural. I did it without thinking about it. And then through growing up and having your own trials and tribulations in your life, you go through this school of hard knocks. And I just think, like, some people are born with a beautiful voice.
True. Yes.
Some people are born to the ability to play the piano. I was born with the ability to have the intuition and the common sense to help people find love.
Interesting. So you're like a Cupid.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I think it's always planes, trains, and buses. I'll do it till the day I'm die. I'm sure of it. Leave the hairdressers in New York and match her with the construction worker outside.
Does that really work sometimes?
Sometimes it does, yes.
Okay. We'll talk about that a little bit in our next segment. We're not going to cut to a break right now. I have another little question I wanted, because that just popped into my mind. Did your parents' relationship have any effect on your desire to matchmake people? Are they still married, or
my parents were married for 45 years.
Okay.
Adored each other, absolutely. But they were several years apart.
Okay.
And he died at 80, and she's still alive at 76. Oh my goodness. And their affection with each other was so sweet that it affected my life that way, that I wanted, and I sought the same for myself. My father was more of my mentor in the fact that he was a straight shooter. And, he delivered the love, but he also knew how to deliver the tough. And I would say that that's my style, too. I'm not going to lie to somebody in that office. I'm going to be honest with them.
Right.
My mother, interestingly enough, is quite an entrepreneur. So I think that she gave me the ability to stand on my own and have the courage to open up my own company almost 2 decades ago. So they both gave me quite a bit.
You got a lot from both of them, and they stayed married their entire lives?
Until he passed, yes.
Okay, so that's a good...
She helped me turn lemons into lemonade, and he told me the squeaky wheel got the oil. How's that?
That's a lot of great wisdom. We're going to take a real quick break here. Please don't go away. I want to give a nice little shout out to my sponsor, the Red Roof Inn. It's on Paradise. They have free Wi-Fi, free breakfast, continental breakfast for guests, and they are pet friendly. Again, don't go away. I'm Christine McKellar. I'll be right back with Patti Novak, America's Matchmaker.
It's pretty amazing when you consider that 7 years ago, we didn't have the treatments we have now. We cure 80% of children with cancer. If you think about that, go back 50 years, we were curing 20 to 30%. This is the miracle story of modern medicine. We understand what makes this cancer tick. And of course, without donors from around the world, this just couldn't happen. And there's one thing we're focused on here at St. Jude, and that's beating this thing.
Welcome back to That's So Vegas. I'm so happy you stuck around. After a brief commercial break, I'm here with America's Matchmaker, Patti Novak, and I'm learning some things. I really have to say that, just right off the bat from the opening, which I hope everybody caught. We talked a little bit about how your parents' relationship was really a good, strong one, and I was curious if that had influenced you. But you mentioned, too, that you can be a little bit of tough love, tough coach. when people come to you, because I'm sure you want to provide an honest service to them.
Well, it
correct?
can appear tough. I think if I deliver the love, which I think I do naturally, I care about people. You can't have my job
And not
care.
Right.
But I think where the tough comes from is the honest. I mean, that might be tough to hear. It's not
Right.
necessarily the approach. Honesty it can be difficult. So if it's a woman who's carrying around some masculine energy that needs to change, if she's straight and she wants a man, a masculine, then she's got to maintain her feminine. So to sit back and tell this particular lady or woman that this is what she has to do, it's a work in progress that came from probably something in her lifetime that was difficult, and it was her wall and her tough. Well, that needs to calm down when you're looking for a man. You have to maintain that feminine.
That's right. That does kind of make sense. It's kind of a yin and a yang thing going on there, right? And of course, you've probably had same-sex couples too that you counsel, correct?
I don't actually, not because I wouldn't, but because they don't call. You know, and certainly I probably have had 3 or 4 gay folks call me, gay men in particular. Women definitely have never called, and I can't help them because I don't have enough of a pool.
Right.
I don't have any pool.
You would need a pool then to pull from.
I would open it up in a heartbeat if they came out of the
closet.
No pun intended. Right.
No,
if they wanted the help, if they felt like they needed the help, and there was enough of them, I would definitely help.
What predominantly would you say your demographic is, age-wise?
Oh my gosh, my oldest couple that I helped, he walked in at 92, was fabulous. His name was Lloyd, I can say it, and Louise, and she was younger than him by about 10 years or so, but they spent his last 4 years. He just passed in May, and she told the sweetest story to me just recently. She called me, and she said, you know, Patty, he bought this baby grand piano, and he would play it every night to help me sleep. Thank you for the best 4 years.
Oh, that almost brings tears to your eyes.
I really did when I
that.
first heard. And so all the way through, up and through your, 65 and above. And they're calling me younger too. They're starting at about 27, which young women really should. If they want a family, if they want to find the love of their life, if it's a choice, of course. But if they want that, they should start ringing at about 27, get out there, start looking, so on and so forth. And so it's ranging from 27 to 90.
Interesting. I think when you're probably in your teens, you're not really, I mean, it's the childish date, and go out with your friends and blind date and stuff like that. Who do you find is to be the most difficult, men or women, especially with your kind of blunt approach?
No, I don't think it's the blunt approach that makes them difficult when there's difficult. It's what they went through in their life that they haven't quite gotten over.
So it's baggage.
It's luggage, yeah, that they bring around with them and carry. You can explain away the unhealthiness of the gentleman perhaps that you were married to, but you have to look in the mirror and say, hey, I stayed there for 10 years, or I stayed there for 20 years. Or in the same time, the men and the women, both East Coast, West Coast, by the way, there's 1 out of 2 women fall victim to poor picking, and about 1 out of 12 men
fall victim to
poor picking. Yes,
I would think the stats would be higher on the men than the women, but that's your
I think there was probably more problematic males out there, or I'm not really exactly sure why, but it's 1 out of 2 women that I have to really go in deep and figure out where they've been. I mean, my whole idea of interviewing is to understand where they've been.
Right.
To understand why they're in my office, in the hopes to take them to the future.
Exactly.
So that's the whole idea.
And you do have a really good track record, and you have a lot of great testimonials on your website. And your website info should be scrolling across our screen here for those of you who haven't given up hope for love and for mating and dating. So do you have a specific number 1 rule for your clients? Is there just like one rule that when you send them out, because you are sending them out on dates with selected, is there any particular rule?
There's not just one. I mean, if I had to say one, I would say kiss it with 1 S. Keep it simple. That means don't talk about politics, religion, exes, anything that makes you feel sad.
Right. Keep it light then.
Keep it simple.
And you also said something earlier that people need to be more as in contact, not like the internet dating when you're texting or emailing. It's important to you, isn't it, that they have some type of a contact with each other, a physical, being in the presence
When I'm making a
of.
match, I do. I mean, it's a physical world out there,
True.
and I didn't make the rules, but I have to follow them. So I want people to look good together, and I want them to meet before they decide to text or to. That's one of the problems with the internet is that they spend a month talking, and it's voyeuristic, and it's not necessarily real chemistry. You have to humanly meet to know whether or not that touch of a hand or the smile or the eye contact, if there's something there. You can have all this great chemistry via text or instant messages, but not necessarily when you meet.
I like
So,
that. That's
I have a
certainly-
5-minute rule. I make the man make the first call. I make him pick the date, et cetera, et cetera. But I tell them only 5 minutes on the phone. All you're negotiating here is where you're going to meet, what time, and what day.
That's wonderful. I like that because I'm one of those, I hate wasteful chatter on a telephone. I'm always thinking of what could I be doing with my hands? I could be doing this. I could be doing that,
Oh, I thought of another really good one. If you
Okay.
listen to understand, you'll respond accordingly. And on a first date, if you're not so nervous that you're trying to think of what you're going to say, that means you're not listening to him or her. So
right.
listen to understand, you'll respond accordingly.
That's really some very sound advice. That's probably something that could help everybody through their everyday life. If
I
you
think so.
about it. Just show a little common courtesy. So you haven't found that men are maybe a little bit harder to direct than the women? I mean, the women you said
No,
just
I
seem
think
to have
that
more
I
baggage.
would
but-
like the men and the women equally. I think men are a little less angry when they go through a tough divorce or I think that they're a little less edgy. They don't let it get to them as much. And we women need to work on not hanging on to something that doesn't belong to us anymore.
Right.
And it certainly doesn't belong to the person that they were just introduced.
And I've often heard, and I'm sure this is pretty true, it seems that men really want to get remarried or hooked up with somebody sooner than women do after a divorce. It seems like the men always want to find
I think
another
that depends
wife.
on the age.
Oh, does it? Well, we'll have to talk about that when we come back. Time is flying. We have to take another quick break here, but I want to come back and talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Pickle jars, all kinds of things. We have things we want to talk about. Quick shout out to the Red Roof Inn on Paradise. Don't go away. I'll be right back with Patti Novak.
It's pretty amazing when you consider that 7 years ago, we didn't have the treatments we have now. We cure 80% of children with cancer. If you think about that, I mean, go back 50 years, we were curing 20 to 30%. This is the miracle story of modern medicine. We understand what makes this cancer tick. And of course, without donors from around the world, this just couldn't happen. And there's one thing we're focused on here at St. Jude, and that's beating this thing.
Welcome back to That So Vegas. I'm still your host, Christine McKellar, with the fabulous, and I can say it now because I've been having so much fun with you, Patti Novak,
thank you.
America's Matchmaker. You were on Oprah, and she actually gave you that tag, didn't she?
She did.
Yeah, and I know I left our audience hanging before the break with a reference to a pickle jar. I'm sure their imaginations ran wild because we've been talking about internet dating and different forms of getting to know people. And so what is the pickle jar?
Well, in today's time where women are so successful and staying beautiful as long as they choose to,
Yes.
They are moms and wives and sisters and daughters and career people that sometimes the independence of the womanhood has lost her sight of the feminine in her. So what I say to the women is that let the men open the pickle jar, because the only thing that hasn't changed in 100 years is men.
Oh.
So therefore, if we're looking for a masculine and we're single and we don't want to be, then put your feminine shoes on and pass over the pickle jar. Let him open it up. We all know how to do it.
Right.
But let him pass it over. It's not an easy thing for independent women to do.
No, it isn't. And I know what my problem is, and I am single, but I do have a handsome, strapping adult son. I can't stand waiting for them to open the pickle jar. It's like, I think we have a tendency to say, well, I've got this list and boom, boom, boom.
Well, and if we've been single a long time, particularly those 10, 20 years,
Right.
we're also in our own way, set in our own place, in our space. So it is harder for us to hand it over, but we still have to.
I like that. And I've noticed within the past half hour, you make a point of referencing the masculine and the feminine. And we did talk about you're not doing transgender or other alternate sex lives because you don't have the audience.
I
you
they're
would be
not
happy
calling
to
me,
do it,
of course.
But when you are dealing with heterosexual couples, it's important, and I love what you just said, that men really haven't changed that much in the past 100 years, but women became emancipated. You know, we've had to take on a lot of roles. I think divorce rates are higher, so women are a lot of times left raising a family by themselves. There's a lot of pressure on women.
There are.
Whereas men are still in a role that they can identify with so much. You know,
I think it's going to change. I think you're going to see that stronger women as generations unfold. I've raised a strong daughter.
Right.
You know, my husband's raised a strong daughter.
Right.
Therefore, they're going to raise strong young people, male and female. You'll see it change. It's also important that women understand that getting married before the age of 26 or 27, we're not the same people. And we do know that every 7 years, women grow. We go from birth, infancy, to a young child, to 14 in puberty, young adult at 21, then watch out, 28, 35, and 42, there's huge growth. So if we follow that golden rule and get comfortable in our own skin, know what we want, have enough development and evolvement in our lives, there'll be less divorce, I think.
That would be nice. I mean, I don't care, and I have a friend going through a divorce, but I keep telling her it doesn't matter who divorces whom. It's always not going to be pleasant. There's just it's a battleground, or it's a heartbreak.
Someone's always hurt, sometimes both, but usually it's one or
Right.
the other.
You also had made a comment that yes, and you do have a natural bent in this. I mean, it is part of your nature and your psyche to put people together. You've been doing it since you were 10 years old, and men versus women, but. What do you find that, like you had said, they don't necessarily have to be married, or you don't necessarily have to put them together?
No,
to
the
be
criteria isn't marriage. However, if you're a gentleman and you're looking for a golf partner, then go to the golf club.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
if you're looking for an exclusive, committed, feel good relationship, whether with romance in it, and you don't want to get married, I'm okay with that.
So you're kind of like a social scientist, would you say? That
I've had someone call me that once or twice. Yes.
It makes sense to me because you've really put a lot of thought into this. This isn't
Well, it's
just
2 decades. It's a long time to work with
But
people.
your inner perceptions, and you don't even have a degree in psychology, do you?
No, I do not.
But you're definitely very aware of the different things that are going through the different people that come to you. And I mean, like you said, you try to help them sort through their baggage if the woman's feminine is repressed or her masculine's too high.
Or she's angry or bitter.
She's angry
Yes.
and bitter. You probably get a lot of that, I would imagine, or they probably wouldn't be
Not
out
a
there.
lot of it, because I won't see them. If I'll say to them on the phone, you know what, give yourself 6 more months and then give me a call. And be in touch with yourself, and take yoga and go out with your friends and learn how to be alone. A lot of women struggle, and a lot of men do, where they don't want to be alone, so they repeat, they poorly pick, they keep going from one relationship to the other without catching their breath.
And that is what I was trying to say in that last segment when we were I was talking about the difference between men and women. Men are less likely to remain alone. They don't like being alone. I think women can kind of go through a little bit of a change there, you know, not have the problem or not want that companionship as much as...
I think they learn how to be alone quicker. They might be just as fearful of it initially.
Right.
But if they give themselves the time, but we're not supposed to be alone. I mean,
Right.
God did not put us here on this planet
To walk
be
alone.
alone. I mean, if you think of the hierarchy of life, it's food, shelter, love, and I'm not quite sure it's in that order.
Interesting.
But it's truly what we're supposed to do here.
Everybody does need love. And I think, well, those of us who are single, we have pets. My dog,
Yes,
my Labradoodle
it's not the
Trixie
same
was on
as
the...
your
No, it
Labradoodle
isn't.
or your son
Right.
dog.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the kind of affection, human touch that we long for, but we
Right.
need it to be healthy. I mean, I would way rather be alone and lonely than
Yes.
be lonely with somebody.
Exactly.
And so therefore it becomes a choice. And vulnerability is a part of love. So you can be vulnerable.
Right.
And you might get hurt, you might pass away, or she. But at the end of the day, if you choose not to be vulnerable, you're not going to have it. And that's okay too if that's the journey you've chosen. But it is about vulnerable.
This is really fascinating. I'd never put so much thought into dating until I met you. Before we wrap up this half-hour episode, I want to talk a little bit about your daughter, because your chemistry, you two are just so wonderful, and what a treat to get to work with your daughter.
It's a pleasure.
And you've done it for 10 years
Oprah
now.
recently asked me, what do I like about her? And I thought about it, and I thought, there isn't much I don't like. And I like her old soul. She's got a great intuitive. But she said, you know, Mom, I think this is it. I think this is what I want to do. So I'm thrilled.
I'm thrilled for you. And
Thank you.
I'm so thrilled to have had you on the show this week.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's really a pleasure. We found out we're kind of neighbors, so hopefully we'll be running around
be in
the
touch.
same, definitely in touch and in the same circles. Again, your website information should have been scrolling at the bottom of our screen here.
Okay, great, wonderful.
And it is wonderful. And who knows, I may be calling you one day, Patti Novak.
Or I might be calling you.
That could happen. Until that day, that's So Vegas. I'm Christine McKellar. Please tune in next week. We have a fabulous star coming on, King Arison. He's just wonderful, and he's very an arresting figure. I'm looking forward to that. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you.
And the best of the everything for you in 2017.
Thank you, and the same to you.
Thank you very much. And I'll be talking to you soon. I'm going to get a date. Till next week. Bye-bye.
1, 2, 3, 4, get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. 9, gonna shine, life is good. I'm doing fine. 10, gonna do it right and do it again, yeah.